the sound of a breath being held. "Where are you safe?" I replied. "At peace." Another pause, then quieter. "We didn't mean to make you feel like you didn't matter." "But you did," I said. For a long time. Silence. "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. "You can reach out again," I told her. "But this time on my terms. Not as a caretaker, not as a wallet, as your father." "Yes." "Of course," she said quickly. "Of course." I ended the call before she could ask anything more. The next morning, I packed up my suitcase and checked out of the resort. Not because I was done healing, but because I was done hiding. I flew back to the mainland with no intention of returning to the house that no longer belonged to me, or to the life where I played the silent bystander in my own story. Instead, I rented a modest place in Asheville, North Carolina. A town with character art mountains, bookstores, coffee shops. It felt alive. Within the first week, I found a volunteer position tutoring high school students in math. Within the second, I joined a walking club for retirees. By the third, I'd met someone. Her name was Nora. Widowed. Clever. Quietly fierce. We shared a bench by the river after one of the walks, and she asked, "What brings you here, David?" "Independence," I said. She smiled like she understood. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It read, "Dad, we're learning. Slowly. But we're learning. The kids ask about you every day. Walter misses your jokes. Margaret misses your pancakes. Bradley and I, we miss your steadiness. Thank you for waking us up. We didn't know what we were doing to you. Not really. If you're ever ready, we'd like to visit. No expectations, no conditions, just to say hi, just to listen." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with Sarah's photo. Not forgiven, not forgotten, but maybe, just maybe, possible. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to decide what happened next. I was writing my own script page by page, and that, more than anything, was what independence truly meant. Part 6. The letter. I didn't expect a letter. Not in the age of texts, voicemails, and missed calls that had piled up like autumn leaves. I had ignored every one of them, choosing silence over conflict, choosing peace over explanation. But there it was. An envelope hand-addressed, no return label, postmarked from Florida. I opened it slowly, sitting at my small kitchen table in Asheville, North Carolina. The window was open. Mountain breeze floated in with the scent of pine in late summer. Nora had just left after our morning walk. We'd shared coffee and a quiet laugh about how bad we both were at yoga. But now I was alone with the words they'd never managed to say out loud. "Dear Dad, we've been trying to call, but maybe you're not ready to talk. That's okay. This isn't about forcing anything. It's just about saying what we should have said a long time ago. We're sorry. Not the kind of sorry that expects forgiveness, like a transaction, but the kind that comes from realizing we failed you. We treated you like a problem to solve, not a person to cherish. We let comfort blind us to your sacrifice. We let our selfishness bury our gratitude. The day we came back and saw strangers in what we assumed would be our house, something broke in us. It wasn't just the shock. It was the realization that everything we thought we controlled, we never really did. That you still had a spine and a plan, and the courage we never gave you credit for. Walter asks about you every day. He keeps saying Grandpa's smarter than all of us. Margaret drew a picture of the beach and wrote your name in the corner. Bradley, he's humbled. And that's not easy for him to admit. But he does. Daily. We know it's not enough, but we hope this letter reaches the part of you that once loved us. Because we still love you. If you're ever ready to let us back in, even just a little, we're here. Not to take, just to listen, just to show up. With love, Lauren. I sat in silence for a long time after reading. The words weren't perfect. They didn't undo the 5 years of quiet resentment or erase the sting of being called a burden behind closed doors. But they were real. Honest, maybe, for the first time in years. And honesty has a way of cracking open even the most reinforced walls. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't moved, but because for once I didn't need to. My tears weren't the currency anymore. My choices were. I placed the letter in the drawer where I kept Sarah's photograph. Her smile, still soft, still knowing, seemed to say, "Told you they'd learn eventually." That weekend I baked pancakes for the neighbor's grandkids. Nora brought fresh blueberries from the market. We sat in the backyard drinking coffee and watching the children play, just like I used to with Walter and Margaret. One of the little boys asked, "Do you have grandkids?" I smiled, unsure of how to answer. "I do," I finally said. "And they're learning." Later that night, I pulled out a clean sheet of paper and wrote a single line. "When you're ready to visit with nothing in your hands but open hearts, you're welcome." I didn't sign it with Dad. I signed it with my name, David. Because before I was anyone's father or husband or caretaker, I was myself. And now I had found that man again. That was the legacy I wanted to leave. Not just a house, not just money, but boundaries, clarity, and maybe, just maybe, a second chance earned through truth, not expectation. Part 7. The Closing Circle. I never imagined I'd see them again on my porch. The fall morning sun cut through the orange leaves above Asheville. My porch now quiet, and mine alone carried the scent of coffee and old pine. I was sipping my second cup when the sound of tires on gravel interrupted the stillness. A gray minivan pulled into the driveway. The engine turned off, but no one moved for a long moment. Then the passenger door opened slowly. Lauren stepped out. She looked smaller than I remembered, still elegant. But the confidence she used to wear like perfume had faded. Behind her came Bradley, then Margaret and Walter. The children clung to their parents, unsure, clearly told to be quiet and respectful. I stood, but didn't move toward them. Lauren held a manila envelope and a travel mug. She took 2 steps forward. "Dad, may we talk?" I didn't answer right away. The silence stretched, only broken by a crow in the distance. "You came a long way," I finally said, setting my mug on the railing. "Must be important." She nodded. "We wanted to see you, in person, not just call and beg over the phone." Bradley added quickly, "We know we have no right, but we came anyway." I gestured to the porch chairs. They hesitated, then moved like students approaching a teacher's desk. Walter stared at the wooden owl I'd carved years ago, perched near the step. Margaret sat closest to me, clutching a tiny drawing pad. "We're not here to ask for the house back," Lauren said, unfolding the envelope. "It's yours to do with as you please. We're here because we've had time to think." "Time's a good teacher," I said. She handed me a letter, handwritten pages filled with crossed-out lines and margin notes. I didn't open it yet. Instead, I watched her eyes. They didn't dart or dodge. "It's not everything you deserve to hear," she continued. "But it's the truth, or at least the beginning of it." Bradley reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a ring box. "It's Sarah's wedding band," he said quietly. "We found it at the bottom of one of the storage boxes. We thought it belonged to Lauren, but it doesn't." I took it gently. The metal was warm from his hand. My fingers trembled as I held it up to the light. the tiny engraving inside our initials and wedding date still visible after all these years. That belonged to someone who taught me what love costs, I said softly. And what it's worth? Margaret whispered, "We drew you something, Grandpa." She passed over a folded piece of thick paper. Crayons, childlike handwriting, a picture of me under a tree with them. My name in blocky letters above a sun. I couldn't speak for a moment. My throat burned. My chest tightened. Lauren stood. "If you don't want to see us again after today, we understand. But we'll wait here while you read the letter. No pressure, just honesty." She took the kids and her husband to the edge of the yard, giving me space. I sat down alone again, but not lonely. I unfolded the letter. It began simply. "Dad, we failed you. Not just in decisions, but in perspective. We saw your aging as inconvenience, your wisdom as resistance, your kindness as obligation. We used your generosity without gratitude. Planned your future as if it were separate from your dignity. We forgot who you are." Each paragraph revealed more. Of fear of insecurity, of inherited blindness. Lauren admitted how much she'd envied Sarah's patience, how unprepared she'd felt raising children without her mother's steadying hand. Bradley confessed his shame not just at being financially dependent, but at knowing he'd become someone Sarah would have gently corrected. They acknowledged their conversations, the ones I overheard. They thought I hadn't noticed. They were wrong. At the bottom, a single line. "We came back not to take but to ask if one day you might teach us again how to live with grace." I folded the pages slowly. My hands still bore calluses from building swings and fixing gutters. Those same hands had also signed away a house. Not out of spite but clarity, I looked toward them. The family who had once made me invisible now stood like exiles waiting for a verdict. "Margaret," I called. She perked up. "Would you like to help me water the garden?" She nodded fiercely and ran to me. "Go grab the watering can," I told her. "It's behind the porch." Walter followed. Lauren and Bradley didn't move, but their eyes glistened. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I simply opened the door a crack. Sometimes that's the most anyone deserves, or the most anyone can give. As the children giggled by the hydrangeas and Bradley unpacked lunch from the van, I poured coffee into 2 mugs and set one on the empty chair beside me. Maybe today it would remain untouched. Maybe tomorrow someone would sit and earn the warmth again. I picked up my own mug, took a sip, and watched the sun reach the edge of my porch. The circle hadn't closed completely, but it had turned, and that was enough for now. If you're still watching, comment 1, so I know you're still with me. Part 8. The door left ajar. It was the first week of December when the knock came. I'd just finished placing a modest wreath on the front door of my small apartment, nothing fancy, just a circle of pine, a red bow, and a few silver bells Sarah would have liked. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every decision, every decoration, every inch of this place reflected my choices alone. The knock was soft, tentative. Not the sharp impatience of a delivery driver or a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. I opened the door slowly. Walter stood there, bundled in a jacket too big for him, a knit hat pulled down over his ears. He was holding a folded piece of paper in one gloved hand, the other gripping a woman's hand tightly. "Lauren." She looked tired, thinner, her hair tied back in a rushed ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, just a plain coat zipped to her chin and eyes that had seen too many sleepless nights. "Hi, Dad," she said. I didn't answer right away. I looked down at Walter, who stared up at me with